Jake, we like to think of ourselves as an accountable podcast, would you say?
Do we?
Well, I'd like to think so.
Yeah,
If we say something that doesn't eventuate, or we look at the stats and things change, we'd like to say that we can put our hand up and say we were wrong.
Yeah, 100%.
Well, after 4 rounds, we declared on this podcast that the Bombers were a bottom 4 team. I think they'd just been smashed at Gather Round by Port Adelaide, looked hapless, and they were sort of 2-2 and languishing. But since then, so we're looking at rounds. We're looking at the last 5 rounds. They've gone 4 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw. They're currently sitting 3rd, and they play North Melbourne this week and Richmond the week after that.
Yep.
Are we thinking that we might have been a bit wrong about labelling them as a bottom 4 team? I mean,
I think clearly labelling them or predicting they would be a bottom 4 team, clearly that's not going to be the case now. They're going to beat North and Richmond. They're going to be on 34 points. And even if they lose every game from that point onwards, they're still not going to be bottom 4 team. So that I was wrong on that. Now, am I prepared to say that they're a far better side than I actually thought they were? I still think they're closer to the bottom 4, 5, 6 on the ladder than they are to actually contending for a premiership.
Right.
And I truly believe that still. I still look at the Bombers, and I said this on Red Time with Jared last week or the week before. Look at all the areas of the ground. They don't scare me in any area. I don't think there's anything they do elite. I don't think there's any area of the ground where they can say with certainty they're a top 2, 3 side. And you might tell me the numbers would suggest that I'm wrong and there is an area. But I look at their forward line, their midfield, the defence. I don't look at anything and think they're so much better than everyone else or even in the conversation for them. And I think you have to be. I think all the sides we look at now and acknowledge are in the premiership mix, and not just this year, but going back any year you want to look at, the sides that are in contention and the sides that end up winning it are great at least one thing.
well, yes, we do talk about the premiership metrics on this podcast a little bit, and maybe we'll get into the Bombers at some stage on that. Maybe not this week, depending on if we have time. But there is one number that you can kind of look at. And we did look at percentage last year when talking about the Pies a fair bit, and sort of that how they were sort of chugging along in these close games and winning these close games. Their percentage sort of hovered around the 100 mark, which was quite rare for a team to have so many wins and be where they were on the ladder late in the season.
What's this now, 98 or something like that?
Yeah, so they're under 100, and so their percentage is actually the 13th best in the league, despite being 3rd on the ladder.
And percentage is a great indicator of how a team is going.
Yeah, and this is what we're kind of saying. It's like, well, so they played the Hawks, they played the Saints, they played the Dogs, they played the Crows, who started really poorly.
Yep.
They played the Eagles, and the Giants are probably their best scalp, plus that draw against Collingwood on Anzac Day. So credit to them, they're banking the wins against the teams that they need to be.
You can't criticise for beating... People will say, they haven't played... It's like, it's not their fault that they're just playing who they're playing.
So what's changed between when we were calling them, a team that had bottom 4 metrics compared to now?
Yep, so I go back to Jake's point. I'd probably disagree that I think I'm not saying they've jumped into the premiership race or anything. I think they are closer now to the premiership teams, if you like, than the bottom 4 teams. So I think they're moving in the right direction. And I think a big part of it is, we spoke about it with Carlton last year, and it goes to your last point as well. There isn't that one area of the game that they rely on. They're their second best clearance team in it, but they're not, they don't overly rely on scores from clearances. Yes, you want to be elite in an area, but also you want to be good at everything. So you want to cover everything. They're starting to go that way. So that's exactly why I'm sort of saying they're moving correctly in the right direction. One of the things I think we spoke about a lot with the premiership standards, and probably when we were speaking about Essendon in round 4, is defence. Defence is one of the big areas of the game. Get that right first, and offence can come off that. So we talk about how much they've improved. They're rounds 0 to 4 compared to rounds 5 to 9. They're scoring 3.3 more points per game than they were in the first 4 rounds. So their actual points for has barely changed. It's their points against that's come down considerably, including 20 points per game less conceded from turnover. So a big part of the game is just being able to protect turnover. They were giving up the second most points from turnover from round 0 to 4. Down to sort of mid-table. So they're not the best team at protecting turnover. They concede 43 points, which is 8th.
Nearly 4 goals better off.
Exactly, for where they were coming from.
Can we pin that on anything? Is that personnel? Is that the way they're structuring up? Or is it just is it who they're playing?
It'll be a lot to do with how they protect the ball, so how they move the ball and exactly how they structure up to protect that loss of turnover and where they're turning it over. So they're moving the ball slightly better themselves. But they're also getting harder to move the ball against. So again, they were the second easiest team to go back 50 to forward 50 against. A lot of your turnovers happen in your forward 50. So Essendon were round 0 to 4, dumping it forward, losing possession in the forward 50, which a lot of teams do, but they were allowing too many to go end to end the other way and end up in a score.
Yep.
So a lot of their points against from turnover, it was coming from what you would call your valuable turnover. Your turnover that you turned over 20 metres away from goal shouldn't hurt you as much as it was hurting Essendon at the start of the year. So teams coming out of defence, 32% of the time, round 0 to 4 against them now at 21%. So they've sort of become like they were the second easiest, and they've become one of the, I think it's the seventh hardest to go from back half against as well in that time. So 18% from a team starting their back half, 80% of those went to forward 50, round 0 to 4. It's now down to 10%. So just the protection of the opposition's end-to-end ball movement is a big part of it. And then again, talk about the ball where it's living, the forward half territory, if you like. So round 0 to 4, talking about defence sort of starts with territory. If you can, as I said, it didn't quite stack up for Essendon, but if you can keep the ball in your forward 50, turn it over there, it shouldn't cost you too much on the scoreboard. It was. So Essendon won, fixed up their leakiness, if you like, of allowing ball movement to go one end to the other, but they're also being able to lock the ball forward. So we're 15th for inside 50 differential, round 0 to 4, now second best team, plus 10.6. Inside
That's a swing of
50s per
17
game.
inside 50s, as in the differential.
Yeah.
And so we're talking about a team that's now able to lock it in. And you look at time in forward half too. They were negative in the time in forward half. They were 14th in the league. Now they're plus 5 minutes and they're 4th in the league for time in forward half. So once they're getting it forward, they're getting it inside 50, but they're keeping it forward as well. And they're defending better.
Yeah, so one of the big numbers that a lot of the teams are cotton onto is midfield intercept possession. So we talk about intercept possessions, and as I said, a lot of your intercept possessions, if you're getting them 20 metres out from the opposition goal, it's a good intercept possession, you've saved the score, but it might not give you much value on the scoreboard. A midfield intercept possession has two sort of high values. One, it's a great place to turn the ball over. You've stopped the opposition from being able to get to their forward half. And two, it gives you a really good launching pad to score from that. So round 0 to 4, they were fourth fewest midfield intercept possessions at 35 per game. Rounds 5 to 9 as a whole, they're 7th, 41 per game, but round 5, they still had quite a low number. So if you just go round 6 to 9 for midfield intercept possessions, they're the fourth best team behind Melbourne, Carlton. I can't remember if it's the right order, but Melbourne, Carlton and Sydney are the top three in that stat. So big part of it is, that setup through the midfield. They already had the clearance domination. Now they're sort of getting that intercept domination in the midfield
I wonder if it's a big enough sample size, because you go back to the end, I know I've said this a few times, but you go back to the end of last season, and it was diabolical. It was embarrassing how they finished last year.
But I think that's because it was the end of the season and it was over. I think they put a bit of a cue in the rack.
Do we know that?
I think you could tell, but
a few false dawns.
Because what if it's this? They ran out of steam towards the end of the year, and the same thing could happen this year.
But again, a lot of the numbers we spoke about leading into it, they weren't doing any of this area well last year either. So last year was all about ball movement. It was all about sort of starting from your back 50 and moving. And there was a lot of times that, as an analyst, you look at it and say, for Essendon to get better, they need to get more territory into their game, and they need to be better from the intercept, where they win their intercepts rather than just trying to get it from back 50 to 40.
This is a whole of club thing, that the rising tide lifts all boats. It's all areas of the ground, like you were talking about, sort of defence and then the midfield stuff, but even like forward half. So they're getting the ball in more, the time in forward half more, but they're getting forward half stoppages more as well. They're getting forward half intercepts more. So there's pressure around the ball carriers coming out. I mean, I think when you look at all this, the screws are just being turned a little bit. It seems more sustainable than just going from 17th to second in one area.
Do we agree that Zach Merritt is Essendon's best player?
He's probably top 4 or 5 in the Brownlow.
Okay, but we agree he's their best player. Who's their second best player?
Isn't that a good?
I'm just curious. Who is Essendon's second best player?
But I think that's
is it Parrish still? Is it Durham? Is it Cole Langford?
I like Langford.
Like, who is it? I'm serious.
But I'm serious in terms of I don't know, and that's a good thing. And this is exactly what we were championing or pumping up Carlton for last year. Towards the end of last year, we were saying Carlton has no reliance on a certain player. Essendon the same. They have Zach Merritt as their best player. They have a match winner in Jake Stringer up forward. They have probably another match winner in Cole Langford.
Mackay's been a wonderful asset in defence.
So I think this is why it's a total team effort. It's part of the advantage.
Then you must be prepared, both of you, because you must both be prepared to say that they not only are going to make finals, that's a given now, but they should be winning one.
Well, hang on. So just a question for you then, because I think you're a bit more cynical than what we are. Are Essendon more likely to play finals or miss finals from this spot?
From this point where they are now, given that, as we said, we'd be stunned if they didn't win both of their next games. Of course they're going to be. They should. It'd be disastrous if they were on 34 points at round 11 or whatever it'll be and miss.
Yeah.
They're going to play.
So okay, looking at these stats, when you talk about the teams they have played, are you happy and willing to wait and look at some of when they come up against harder edge teams and if they can get over the line against
Well,
them?
that's what I need. I need a bit more of a sample size because I know we can say from rounds 5 to 9.
But you can only beat the teams that are in front of you.
I
right?
understand that. I said it before, but from rounds 5 to 9, we can say they've been good. But we can also say from rounds 4 can go back a long period of time to say that they were ordinary.
Again, I've been looking at Essendon. I've got to look at numbers every single round, but Essendon has been a watch since round 4 or 5 last year. The things that were on watch for them that they weren't fixing, they have fixed in the last 5 or 6 weeks. So you may say it's a small sample size, but as I said, it hasn't gone from 17th to 1st and 16th to 1st where you go, whoa, they've gone way too far. They've gone from 17th to 8th, from 14th to 4th, from 13th to 8th.
And we know that
everything is going in the right direction. So all I'm saying is I'm taking the win and loss record out of it. I'm taking finals out of it. I'm looking at Essendon's profile now and saying, yes, you are now clearly fixing up areas of the game where you're going to be more sustainable in a turnover and a forward half environment, which has become a big part of winning a premiership. So I'm not talking top 4, bottom 4. I'm just talking statistics.
They're in form, right?
Yes.
They're in form right now. They're one of the form teams everyone's going to say of the competition. Final start tomorrow. How many teams are you more confident would win if the final started tomorrow?
Because I start tomorrow. This is
my point. Because everyone wants to carry on about how great they're going. They are not, in my mind, any chance of winning the premiership this year. No chance.
And that's fine. But I think for a team like Essendon, making finals is probably a great leap. And when just winning a final, without sort of bringing up the meme again, just winning a final would be...
But that's my point. You should be prepared to say that if they're doing this, they're playing as well as they have played in a long time.
Club. I mean,
Would it be a failure if they didn't win a final this year?
No, I don't think so.
Would it be a disappointment if they didn't win a final this year?
It would be a disappointment, yeah. But they've not played enough teams with enough, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Like enough, they carry enough weight, I guess, at this stage.
Well,
but they will come up against these teams.
And we'll see how they go.
But they've passed the tests they've had with flying colours.
They have.
And it seems more sustainable, I think, is the point.